What am I doing sitting in the only smoking section left in the state of Arizona? Why do I have a grin that reads, "Don't mess with me, I still taste like Texas"? Why do all these license plates outside my window read, "I would rather be flying"? And why do I believe that by drinking copious amounts of this IHOP coffee, I can grow wings? Tell me, why am I flying west? Why am I following these stars to California? Tell me of those games that we used to play while lying on our backs, when we traced elephants and dragons in the clouds, when we made maps with the stars, imagining intergalactic wars between celestial empires comprised of constellations that we did not know the names to yet. And tell me, how did we forget? How did we get here from then? When did these lips start talking of tragedy? When did they stop kissing my mother? When did I start to bother with grocery lists and girlfriends? Tell me, when did it become pretentious to pretend? To imagine that we are something that we are not, like an astronaut whose job it simply is to fly up and bear witness to those clusters of carbon doing their infinitely secular slow dance in the silence of space. Tell me, when did the universe stop making you dizzy? When did we start to believe in gravity? When did our pockets become heavy with the spare change left over from our life? And tell me, when did we stop? When did we stop building love with Lego blocks? And when did we stop imagining mountaintops? And when did we stop believing we could climb them every day? When did we start to believe them when they say that life is an uphill battle, even though we know full well even worse is the way back down again? Tell me, how did we get here from then? When did we become a generation of muted ventriloquists? When did we stop breathing life into inanimate objects? When did I start writing eulogies for people and things that have not died yet? When did the Colorado start carving a Grand Canyon from my chest? When did I start to believe all those Nevada billboards with bullet holes in them that are telling me to find God? And why is it that I want to live for an eternity? Is it so I can watch the world end? Is it so I can write naked poetry to nobody like I did when I was a kid, before I learned geography, before I knew where California was, when I still dreamed of places that were called Mars, before the lights of this stage got so bright I could no longer see the stars? Thank you. Thanks. So this festival has just been absolutely amazing. All the people. So I should actually just tell us a story. Like, I've been telling a story all weekend, but I have no idea where I am geographically. It's so bizarre because I arrived here on Friday night at 1 in the morning, and Anne picked me up. So I got to the airport in Toronto, and I got in a car that was waiting for me, or like a van or whatever. And then I got here, and then Anne picked me up at the Tim Hortons, and in the dark drove me to some person's house that I slept at. And then people have been picking me up and taking me places, and I'm like, I don't know what direction anything is. And then last night I was drunk at the bar and someone drove me home, and I was like, this place is amazing. Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. So, yeah, it's really weird. Because, I go on tour, not lots, but I do go on tour, and so much of it's trying to find my way where I am. But and it's not going to stop because I'm leaving as soon as I'm done this set to go back on an airplane. So, how many people here have ever been to Saskatoon? That's where I'm from. Hey, right on. That's cool. So I got a couple pieces. Obviously, you write about where you're from, but I don't know if anyone's ever been to Saskatoon recognizes this guy called Sailor Dan. He's well, you'll hear about kind of a biography about him in the poem a little bit, but he's a kind of a homeless person, but I don't, transient person, I'll say, not necessarily homeless, but he dresses like a sailor, and he's in Saskatchewan, which is hilarious because there is no, it's the most landlocked thing in the world. So this poem is dedicated to him. He's a really good guy. I like him. I hang out with him. So this is for Sailor Dan. I once met a sailor who had never been to sea. And I used to see him almost daily outside the shop where I would stop to buy a pack of cigarettes, and I would give him one. And he would tell me that he used to be in the Navy, that he sailed a Spanish galleon across the Atlantic and back again. You see, I knew that he was lying. This was pretty much common knowledge, but there was a part of me that wanted to believe him, because this landlocked sailor, he was also a magician. I once saw him roll a joint with one hand, saw him turn his monthly welfare checks into a Navy pension plan. His name was Dan, and he used to draw the same picture over and over and over and over again. It was a perfect replica of that Spanish galleon. He started by doodling them on napkins before bumming enough spare change to buy some bristleboard and some black pens, and by now he has drawn thousands of them. And every hipster kid in my hometown has a copy. He used to sell them for a few bucks or a cup of coffee, but honestly, I don't think that's why he drew that ship. I think, truthfully, he wanted to sail away on it. I mean, he already had that sailor's hat on and the long, mangy beard that was going gray. And on a good day, the vastness of the prairies can resemble an ocean. And if you squint your eyes hard enough, you can see ships rolling over that canola yellow horizon. And Dan could be the captain of that Spanish galleon. I can see him now just off the starboard bow, barking orders to the squeegee kids like they were his deckhands, looking to me like I was his first mate, and together we would sail off into that harvest moon, smoking cigarettes covered in salt water while testing fate, while waves of wheat fields came crashing down on us, and we would navigate our way through the dust kicked up from farmers' feet, dodging icebergs carved from hay bales and sheaves of wheat. Because when we are in the prairies, we are at the center of the universe, because you can see the end of the earth horizon in every direction. And together, me and Dan will unearth that anchor of alcoholism and inaffection, pull it up by its roots, and cast off into a sea of impossibility. A place where that same black pen drawing that same straight line picture over and over and over again can make homeless dreams a reality. A place where we can be a sailor even though we've never been to sea. Thank you. So yeah, if you ever go to Saskatoon, you should pick up a Sailor Dan original. They're like everywhere. It's amazing. It's the same drawing over and over again, and it's like really intricate, but there's got to be like hundreds of thousands of them, especially now that was poems probably like 3 or 4 years old, so there's probably way more out there. So this next piece, for how many people were at the other show they did yesterday? A couple of you. So I'm sorry, this is the only piece that's going to repeat in the set. I like this poem. This is another poem about Saskatoon. And this is a poem I get a lot of requests to do. And so in the theme of Saskatoon, I'm going to do it. It's called Saskatoon, a Love Letter. And it's obviously about where I was born and raised. They say home is where the heart is, but I am home, and I do not know where my heart is. It is lost somewhere in the tangled street corners of my lover's chest, drowned in this tamed river that flows from her mouth, down in between her breasts. And her rib cage is built from bridges. Her veins are carved from the asphalt of unfinished freeways. She has a stolen Indian name, and it refers to those sweet berries that she used to carry with her during her childhood, but now her fermented fingertips are spread out like foreign suburbs. But when I am at her center, right next to her pulse, I am home. But sometimes home feels like a childhood friend I know too well to love, so I am always trying to leave her for places that are more punk rock, for somewhere where I could grow dreadlocks and have some better weather. Because sometimes she feels like a one-night stand that I'm having over and over and over again, and I don't understand how beautiful she is because I see her every day. And they say she is not a place people go to, she is a place people are from. But when I'm gone, I miss her honeysuckle kiss. I miss the openness of her boom-blasting thunder sky. I miss her canola yellow horizon, her exhaust-stained snow. Because after 29 years, I know every one of her imperfections. All of those cracks on her concrete face, every dark, dirty back alley she has given birth to, every gentrified identity crisis this woman has ever been through. Because on bad nights or on good nights, I call all that self-emulation laugh lines. I say that those pothole craters that scar her underbelly are what keep her creative and happy. I tell myself that living with her is what keeps me sane. Because even though her breath is often dry and heavy with dust, she smells different when it rains. And even though she's so grumpy and unbearable in her winter coat, she is so beautiful in her spring undress. So you prairie princess, call all of your estranged children home. Put those big city vampires to sleep and come lay with me on a riverbank under a blanket of living skies, because I think now I finally realize where my heart is. I think now I might be home. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit now. So this next poem, it's a couple years old, and I was going through a breakup. So yeah, it's like 5 years old. Ooh, shit. Damn. But this is like the weirdest breakup poem. It was when I hadn't broken up, or we hadn't broken up and ended our relationship, but I was like, it needs to end. And I could tell that she was like, it needs to end. And I wrote this poem. And it was actually performed as a team piece with two people. Oh my God, I'm just like, with another girlfriend of mine, randomly enough. Which was really strange. We have since also broke up, but besides the point. This is and it has a, like, I'm gonna call them naughty words because they're like goofy, like naughty, like they're not like swear words. It's whatever. I don't know why I'm saying this. This poem's weird. He says that he feels tired, and she says she feels like staying awake. He says that he feels hungry. She says she feels empty. They don't kiss or make love. They just stay up all night talking about their feelings. He says he feels like a karaoke kiss, like he's been lip-syncing his way through this, like he's been stroking his own ego for so long with his right hand, like he's been pissing with an erection, like he's been missing the mark, like he doesn't know the person he's been sharing a bed with for the better part of 9 months, and she feels wrapped in a cocoon of caterpillar cuddles, and he feels like he's already blossomed into a butterfly boner. That's the worst line I've ever written in my life. I don't know why I keep it in the poem. It gets okay after that, I promise. And now I have to repeat that line because I can't remember where I am. She feels wrapped in a cocoon of caterpillar cuddles, and he feels like he's already blossomed into a butterfly boner. She feels like an unheard orgasm inside of an ocean, like a deep-sea diver in a saltwater swimming pool, like she's been drowning inside of him. And he feels like the last blown-out birthday candle, like he just got his heart broken by a 12-year-old with ice cream cake on her face. And she feels like a bag of smashed cataracts, like a corduroy couch furniture fire, like poetry puke pile on the page, like word salad, like a collection of pretty similes that make no sense. And this makes no sense. It feels less like love and more like someone trying to tickle you to cheer you up after your grandmother has died. Like a Band-Aid trying to cover the hole in the ozone layer. Like an alarm clock that only plays radio static. Like the white noise of channel surfing. Like that feeling you get from car air conditioners. All dry, out of touch, and misunderstood. And they are trying, as if they could make up for all those fermented feelings buried deep in their chests. And she feels like following her dreams, and he feels like growing up. And actually, he has no idea what either of those things mean. He just wants to watch television in his underwear, and he doesn't care what the neighbors or his family or anyone think about any of this. And neither does she. So at 4 a.m. they fall asleep silently in the same bed with separate blankets wrapped around them tightly, within arm's reach yet so far away, with all of these words but nothing real to say. Thanks. That's called Goofy Sad. It's a new genre. So this next, I'll just go on this next piece. It's along the same lines. Same woman. This is before, though. Someone the other day asked me what I write about, and I was like, my life. It was like, because people are like, what do you write about? What is your... I was just like, stuff that happens to me. Relationships tend to be part of that. Where I live is part of that. So this is the next piece. She walks in the room, her smile like a lightning strike, whispering thunderstorm in my ear. The electricity of her breath causes the hairs on my neck to stand on end. There are days when I call each dying star my best friend, because the space out there is like the space between us, and we are all built of stardust. There are old growth forests sprouting from her armpits. There are raging rivers spilling from her chest. But no, this is not about the sex. It is more than an excuse to stay warm. In some worlds, they call this happiness, the absence of anything unfriendly. But she is just a traffic jam waiting for my kiss. She is a snowflake melting on my tongue. She is cold. The way her long distance I love yous sound over the telephone. She says, out there, it still rains Vancouver, and here It's about to begin snowing Saskatchewan, and all the birds buried deep in her belly button are beginning to fly south, and my heart is in a constant state of hibernation, because out there, all of the beehives, or all the ladybugs are dying, all of the beehives are spontaneously collapsing, all because we decided to tie down our stars to lampposts and taught our trees to grow sideways into boxes, turned our campfires into television sets. And no, this is not about the sex. It is more than an excuse to stay warm. In some worlds, they call this happiness, the absence of anything unfriendly. But she tells me, like the leaves of fall's trees, we are all dying. But she believes we look the most beautiful, blushing in the days just before death. Thanks. So yeah, I got a couple more ones. This next piece is a different kind of piece for me. It's not, it's very kind of literal, which I don't really do that often, but I remembered it this morning. I was laying in bed, I was like, oh yeah, that one. I'll do that today. And it's really rhymey too, which is weird. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was at this blues bar on Broadway, and between the pounding of bass drums and the bending of guitar strings, she told me two things. First, that she didn't love me anymore. And second, that we could still be friends. And you see, I remember that day more clearly than any major world event or catastrophe that has happened before or since then. On September 11th, 2001, I missed my bus. My friend picked me up, and the two of us sat in his Cadillac, smoking weed, listening to the radio as the world was changed forever. He said it was the start of World War III. Every year, Hillary O'Neill of New York City celebrates her birthday proudly this September 11th. She will be 15 years old. And as she's blowing out birthday candles, trying not to think of boys, she will turn off the news. You see, we all have those days when they say, this you will remember. This is something you will tell your grandkids. But tell me, where were the newspaper reporters and the cameras on the day I first got my heart broken, on the day my grandfather died, when I held my mother for the first time in my arms like a child as she cried? I remember where I was the day Diana got killed in that car crash, the day America elected its first black president, the day Michael Jackson jokes went out of fashion. You see, I was 16. I lost my virginity, and the first air raids flew over Afghanistan. 2 years later, my legs went numb, and I was diagnosed with the disease that may one day kill me. But all I remember is the TV, the hospital waiting room, 191 people killed by terrorists apparently in Madrid. You see, when I was a kid, I used to think that the world revolved around me. But now I just feel guilty every time my heartbreak feels like a Japanese earthquake. Because every time I breathe, somebody dies. And I'm trying my hardest to realize there is no point in holding my breath. There is no point forsaking the beauty of life, even in the face of so much death. Thanks. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This festival is great. And I wanted to say one thing that I really liked about this festival is the blend of spoken word, like what, this weird like slam poetry, or whatever you want to call it, and poetry. Like, I just think it's all the same thing. So I really like the mixture of ages and representations of people who are performing here. It's not just, people that all sound the same. It's a lot of diversity, and the other writing has just been wonderful, and I'm so sad that I can't stay and watch the people after me. But I have to get back home. So thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Kristen, for driving me around all weekend, and Hazel and Anne and everyone else that put this whole thing together. It's been wonderful. So this is my last poem. Thank you so much. If you're ever in Saskatoon, look me up. Come to our show. It's awesome. I forgot. Oh yeah. So this poem is dedicated to my late grandpa. He was a good guy. When my grandfather died, he left us with a house full of things that no longer had a heartbeat. We tried to keep what we could, but slowly all of his possessions became meaningless. That collection of Hawaiian t-shirts that no longer fit, those water glasses that would forever sit beside his bed, that worn-out winter coat he would wear all summer long, those things are gone. They are dead, even though they were never really alive. And I think now I am starting to realize the difference between death and life is simple semantics. This is all just a concept, a ventriloquist's trick to animate the lifeless. They say that energy is never created nor destroyed. Some people call that God. I like to say we are as much forest fire as refrigerator, as much waterfall as filthy tar sands electricity. We are all stitched together so improbably as the light bulb that becomes an insect's graveyard. The pocket lint, the antacid pills, my grandfather's crumpled receipts. This is the stuff life is made of, the simple suicide of every day. We never actually fade away. We just end up as moon rocks wrinkling of old age in the silence of space. But despite that, the stars are still whispering. The trees are still talking to each other when no one is listening. I can still taste my grandfather's cold, dead skin from the last time I kissed him. When my grandfather died, all 8 of his children, 21 grandkids, were by his bedside. And while most of us cried, the law of conservation states that matter, like energy, is never created nor destroyed. So we never actually die. We just end up as moon rocks, as water glasses. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a fantastic festival. I hate to leave, but I have to, so this is awesome. Give it up for all the organizers, and stay tuned.